Hello everyone, this video explains the build that I've made in the Path of Exile 1 3.25 Phrecia Event League. The build is, get ready for this, a Poison Bog Shaman, Cyclone, cast while channeling Forbidden Rite, cast when damage taken, Blade Vortex, and Soul Rend of the Spiral build. It's definitely quite a mouthful, but basically it's a one-button build where you just hold down Cyclone the entire time and spray out spells everywhere that poison enemies. The build is a very fast glass cannon mapper, even without a Mage Blood, and once you have a Mage Blood, it has no problem with Pinnacle bosses. So let's get right into it. The core interaction of this build that allows us to use Forbidden Rite to trigger our level 21 cast when damage taken supports 3 times a second and not die has some good, some bad, and some ugly. So starting with the bad, we took the Ascendancy node on the Bog Shaman that sets our chaos resistance at 0, so we can take a full 3000 plus damage every time that Forbidden Rite casts. Then the ugly is that we are taking the Divine Flesh Keystone from a Glorious Vanity Jewel, which makes us take 50% of elemental damage as chaos damage instead. So you can see that our max hits on this build are not going to be good, and that is the weakness of the build. As I said, it is glass cannony, so I run a cast on death portal setup, so deaths aren't such a big deal. But this weakness that we impose on ourselves is what allows us to get so much healing that it's basically impossible for us to get multi-hit killed on this build. So what we are using is the Tainted Pact Amulet, which makes our chaos damage over time heal us instead of damage us, as long as we are currently leeching life. Healing is its own property and isn't leech, regeneration, it's not recoup or life recovery, so even though we may die, we can run basically any map mod without actually breaking the map entirely. So to impose this chaos damage over time onto ourselves, we're using Righteous Fire and the Forbidden Flame skill, which can be found on the Annihilation's Approach boots. When you activate this skill, you take 6000 fire damage per second, and you gain Adrenaline, which also gives us 25% movement speed, 100% damage, which does increase our poison damage, and 10% physical damage reduction. This skill is always active until you turn it off, so since Righteous Fire and the Approaching Flame skill both do fire damage over time, half that fire damage is converted to chaos damage over time because of the Divine Flesh Keystone, and the half of the fire damage that still remains is mitigated by our fire resistance, while the chaos damage over time is not, since we have 0 chaos resistance. So these skills end up healing us instead of hurting us. So along with that, some recoup and some leech from the self-damage from Forbidden Rite, we can normally get back about 10,000 life per second, just on our own, spinning in place. When we get near enemies though, our healing is off the charts, and that is because of the Golden Rule Jewel, which is kind of a funny name since the Golden Rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. And what this jewel does is reflect the poisons that we put onto our enemies back onto us also. The thing is though, we're built differently, so instead of hurting us, we can get up to 100 stacks of poison onto ourselves, and all it's going to do is heal us for millions of health per second, because poison is chaos damage over time. Okay, so I'm going to show off the build, talk about it a little bit before I get into super specifics. I'm going to take off my Blade Vortex setup and my Soul Rend of the Spiral setup, so when we're damaging ourselves with Forbidden Rite, we're not going to be casting these right now. It's only going to be the damage from Forbidden Rite, because Forbidden Rite's actually a lot of our mapping, because it auto-targets enemies, so it's really good. But you can see here that my Approaching Flames boots are always on, so if I click, it'll start damaging me. I'm going to die just because I always die on this build. But what we do is we have enough recoup on the build that after a couple seconds of casting, we can actually sustain this no problem. And if we find an enemy, we'll just damage them immediately, and it'll just go, just heal us completely, instantly, indefinitely, unless we get one shot. But yeah, as you can see, when there's no enemies around and we're not doing any poison damage, we can sustain this. And I'm not even using this flask that gives me 25% of maximum life as chaos damage per second. That is another way that you can sustain your life before you get all your recoup and leech stuff down and your fire max resist up. This is just a good way to crutch the build, and I used it for a long time. You don't need a Mage Blood. I will show you the setup without Mage Blood. I used it for a very long time. Mage Blood's just comfy. It doesn't really add a ton. It doesn't make the build work any better, I'd say. It just makes you go faster, easier to fit elemental resistances and whatnot. But yeah, so you'll see with Forbidden Rite that it will auto-target the hell out of enemies. We are shooting like 14 projectiles around. You can see it shooting them all over the place. And I mean, I can go way faster. These enemies are going to be dying to poison. That guy might not die so fast. Who's a rare? Blade Vortex and Forbidden Rite, not Forbidden Rite, but Soul Run to the Spile are better single target damage. But you can see that our mapping's pretty good without them. I just wanted to show you what Forbidden Rite was doing on its own, because it's very hard to see with everything else going on. But yeah, if you want to pick something up, is there any loot on the ground? You have time to pick it up. You just want to click Cyclone in between, so you hit yourself with Forbidden Rite. And that is because, here, I'm going to leave now. You also have time to leave. But that is because we have to be damaging ourselves to be leeching. And that is because of this suffix that you can craft. It is a veiled suffix, so you have to unveil it from that one unique flask. I think it's called Earn something. But once you unveil that, you can craft it onto a flask. If you don't have a Mage Blood, I suggest a Ruby Flask because it has the longest duration. Obviously, you get increased duration on it, so this never goes down. If this goes down, you die. There's just nothing. There's no if, and, or but. But I never had a problem with that because instead of Mage Blood, you can run this belt, which gives you 3 flask charges every 3 seconds. And yeah, it just makes it so you sustain this basically indefinitely. As long as you kill an enemy every, I don't know, just like 40 seconds, like you'll get enough charges to sustain this. But yeah, so this is the belt you use if you don't have a Mage Blood, and they get increased duration on flasks. But yeah, so we have to be damaging ourselves to be leeching. And that's because Tainted Pact says you have to be leeching to then be getting the healing from chaos damage over time. Okay, so I have to cut this in somewhere. I don't know where yet. But I know I forgot to explain this. The last mod on these gloves, life leech effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled, is a very important thing to have on this build because we can't let our life leech ever stop. And we're always filling our life, so it will always be stopping. If it stops, all of our chaos damage over time that we're taking is actually going to damage us instead of heal us, which is bad. Duh. These gloves are the only way to really do this. There is a Glorious Vanity Keystone that can do that, but we already have a Glorious Vanity on, so we can't do that. And then Macchiato's Shield has something that allows you to do something, which actually gives you that Keystone that I was talking about. But we don't want to use the shield. We're using the staff. And then also, you can kind of get a similar effect with Petrified Blood, where you just never actually fill all your unreserved life. But it doesn't, if you do fill all of your life, like with a flask, like with this Forbidden Taste Flask, which will like basically completely heal you, it will cut off the effect, even with Petrified Blood. So that's why I was using these gloves. I don't really use this flask anymore, so maybe Petrified Blood would work now instead of these gloves. I don't know what else I'd put here yet. Probably something with poison damage, I don't know. But even then, we will be lowering our max hit more by using Petrified Blood. I know what Petrified Blood does, but it effectively does lower your max hit. So we will put back on Soul Rend and our Blade Vortex and go back into here. And there's probably enemies nearby, so I can just run straight forward, poison someone. I don't have to worry about my recoup being built up, because it's going to build up now while I'm getting millions of healing back. This is the boss. And you can see that we cast Soul Rend every single time it's possible. Every single time we damage ourselves with Forbidden Rite, we are triggering cast from damage taken. You can see that by my mana going down pretty consistently. It might like skip sometimes, and that might be because I don't have perfect like recoup, or I don't have enough mana at some time, but it's pretty much hitting every single time. It's just a kink you gotta work out, and it's very dependent on what gear you have, because it's dependent on the amount of life you have, because we are getting our mana sustain from this node, damage taken, recouped as mana, and then I think, no, this one? And also the Mana Mastery, damage taken, recouped as mana. So depending on how much we're damaging ourselves with Forbidden Rite is how much mana we're getting back. And yeah, I think that's kind of the basics of running a map. Okay, so we will look at our gem setups now. It's basically, we have our cast while channeling support on our Cane of Calmac, and our channeling is obviously Cyclone, and the thing we are triggering is Forbidden Rite, as we've talked about. And our Cyclone actually has a 5% more movement speed multiplier on it instead of the normal minus 30% movement speed or 30% less movement speed. And that's because the Cane of Calmac has a mod +3 to level of socketed support gems, and we have a enhance on here, which gives us 48% quality to our supported skill gems, which is Cyclone. So we're just getting so much quality to this. We have a corrupted one with 23% quality. I don't even know if that hits a break point, but I got one. Also, this should be level 1 because I'm using more mana than I should be when I'm channeling this because it's not doing damage, so why would I level this up? I just messed up there. And then, yeah, Forbidden Rite is shooting 14 projectiles to surrounding enemies because of the quality also. And the only damage support we really have on this for Forbidden Rite is Empower, because it's also getting the +3 levels from the Cane of Calmac. And then this is like our only defense I was able to fit on the build besides like normal resistances and having a lot of life. The infused channeling support does not increase the damage of our Forbidden Rite because it's not the skill that we're channeling, but since we're always channeling, we are going to be taking 11% less damage from hits, which also includes our damage from Forbidden Rite, which is actually a bad thing. Good thing. It's a bad thing because we have to get our life high enough that we are going to be triggering our cast from damage taken. How much damage do I take right now? Okay, so Forbidden Rite does 40% of your maximum life as chaos damage, which means I am taking 3,816 life as damage every time it's hitting me, since I have 0% chaos resistance. And then with the infused channeling support, I am actually taking 3,397 damage, and that is enough to reach the threshold of cast from damage taken. I have to take 3,580. But with the quality, it requires 10% reduced amount of damage taken to trigger. So with 10% less than 3,580, I am triggering this every single time that I hit myself with a Forbidden Rite. So you got to worry about those thresholds, the level of your skill gem, the level of cast from damage taken, how much damage you're taking, your life, how much damage you're reducing. So that's why it's also hard to get damage damage reduction on the build, because then you might be messing with this setup. So you kind of just have to be hitting yourself really hard and getting hit really hard. So now we'll talk about Blade Vortex setup. We have obviously cast from damage taken. We have Blade Vortex. And this we can look at the path of building to see how useful it is. It is doing a decent amount of damage. It's just some more damage we can add onto this build, and it's not really subtracting from the build in any way. Maybe you could completely get rid of Blade Vortex and just use Soul Rend of the Spiral, especially once you get a Nimbus. But for the supports on Blade Vortex, we have Unbound Ailment support, and then we have Void Manipulation, which I think is probably obviously not increasing the damage of the Blade Vortex, but just the poison that it's inflicting. Maybe there could be something better here. I actually haven't thought about this in so long. I kind of forgot this was here. And then for our Soul Rend of the Spiral setup, we have our cast of damage taken. We have an Empower, which may or may not be the best thing to put in this slot. We have returning projectile support because Soul Rend of the Spiral allows all projectiles to hit on their way back. So this is a gigantic damage multiplier to have the returning projectile support on it. And that's why a Nimbus will be better, because you don't get the 61% less damage downside that a Nimbus would have. And then Unbound Ailment support, of course, and Awakened Void Manipulation support. +1 level to the Soul Rend, and then more damage and more poison damage. And then for our supporting skills, we have another cast from damage taken. Obviously, we have Enfeeble, and Withering Step. Enfeeble is making it so we take less damage from enemies that are cursed, which is one of our only other layers of defense, and this obviously doesn't affect our damaging ourselves, even with reflected curses. I think I have reduced effective curses on me, so this will not be messing with this setup if it gets reflected onto me. And then I also have Withering Step, which makes us faster, and while you're channeling, you can see it activated, and it's still up there. You can see the elusive effect counting down. As long as you continue channeling, Withering Step will stay active, but let the cooldown reset, and then I'll do it again. If you stop channeling and then channel again, then it will break the elusive effect and you'll lose your speed. You'll lose the withering within the area around you. We also have on our Glorious Vanity Jewel, we have this node here, which gives us 25% chance to inflict Withered for 2 seconds on hit. And we're hitting so much. I don't know how many stacks we're getting on enemies, but it's enough. And then on our helmet, our only real link here is Cast on Death support and Portal. Since we have such low max hit, we are leaning into the 6 Portal defense layer, haha meme. But yeah, this is actually pretty necessary. If you want to be blasting maps, you will die. There's just nothing you can do about it, and this will help you get right back into the map and start spinning around again, and it's like nothing really happened. You just wasted the time of a loading screen. And then for the other 2 gems on here, which don't have to be linked, it doesn't really affect anything, is Herald of Agony for poison chance, is literally the only reason I have it, and then Malevolence for more chaos damage and more chaos damage over time from Soul Rend, and then also from poison, obviously. And our other poison chance on this tree here is I came all the way over here. Poison on hit with spell damage. All of our things that we're hitting with are spell damage. And then same with this node. And then on our 2 medium cluster jewels, we have Septic Cells, which gives us 20% chance to poison on hit with spells. Same with that. And then from my amulet anoint, I anointed this node, which gives me 15% chance to poison on hit. And that gives us our 100% chance to poison on hit with our 20% from Herald of Agony. Okay, so we'll look at the passive tree, starting off with the Ascendancy. We're taking this is how our chaos resistance is 0, and also the enemy resistance is 0, so we really don't got to mess with chaos resistance on the enemy at all, because we can't change it now if we wanted to, because it just is 0, and we are 0, and that's why. Also, the golden rule doesn't affect our chaos resistance, and so we're not changing our chaos calculation at all, and that's why we can reliably just trigger cast when damage taken. And then we come over here, take this, which increased projectile speed, helps Forbidden Rite, and Soul Run of the Spiral. Area Effect does help Forbidden Rite, and then also probably Blade Vortex, I'm actually not sure. And then increased Skill Effect Duration doesn't really do much for the build as far as I'm aware. Nothing that I really care about. And then we're also taking this, which is 40% more damage over time, which affects our Soul Run of the Spiral chaos damage over time, and then also our poison damage that we're doing. And we do lose 5% of our life per second, which we are obviously circumventing with all of our regen. If you are having problems circumventing this, you can just unallocate it, lose the damage for the time being until you fix it. And you can take this, which makes it so enemies nearby deal 10% reduced damage and taking 10% increased damage. Just something else you can do. And then this is what kind of enables this build to work, and how I can get so much life to then damage myself so much, so I can run such high level castle damage takens. The Sanguine Power, any energy shield on our body armor, helmet, gloves, and boots is then turned to life instead of energy shield, and we can't get energy shield on the build at all. And so yeah, we can just get a ton of life with like a Twilight Regalia and a Lich's Circlet. We don't have any energy shield on this, and we have very little on these, but this is what really enables this build, and also why this just won't work on other Ascendancies ever, as far as I'm aware. Okay, so for the rest of the tree, we have a nice cluster jewel that gives us a lot of chaos damage. We're taking Wicked Paul, Unwaveringly Evil, and then Unspeakable Gifts, which gives us some Corpse Explode, which is really nice, instead of trying to pay a ton of Divines for Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh for Profane Bloom, which is a lot better chance for Corpse Explosion, and it will probably make your mapping better. But for the time being, we have, what is this? Withering Presence, which I don't think it says, but it gives us 15% more chaos damage. It withers enemies within our presence, and then gives us plus 60% chaos resistance, which obviously doesn't matter on this build, but those are the Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh that I have on right now. And then we're also getting a ton of chaos damage with this normal setup that we've all seen a million times. The Light of Meaning, which is giving 6% increased chaos damage on every single passive node that we're taking here. And then we're also using Unnatural Instinct, which allocates all passive skills in the radius that we have not taken and unallocates all that we have taken. So we're not getting anything from this projectile damage, we're not getting anything from the strength, but we are getting this plus 6% increased chaos damage from the Light of Meaning. And then also lightning resistance, fire, cold resistance. We're getting dexterity, movement speed, some more dexterity. So yeah, this combo is very good. And then also we take all these life nodes because we're getting life, chaos damage, and all this. For the rest of our life, we are taking all of these nodes, these nodes, these nodes, these nodes. We can't take these because our Glorious Vanity is affecting those and not making them life anymore. But the mastery we're taking is 15% increased maximum life while there's no life modifiers on our body armor. If you do a Searing Exarch or Eater of Worlds implicit, there's like increased life regeneration rate and life or like damage recouped as life. If you put those on there, that actually affects this. So don't do that, or just don't take this 15% increased maximum life, which is actually pretty good. And so for our mana sustain, and whatnot else that our mana clusters give us, we're getting 10% damage recouped as mana, as I talked about before. Same on the mastery. And then we're also getting a 12% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. And this node here and this node also gives us reduced mana cost of skills. There's a mana mastery that gives you a reduced mana cost of skills. Same with all these nodes over here. If you're having problems, all your spells triggering every single time that you're getting damaged, because that's a lot of your DPS right there that you kind of want to be letting work. If it skips sometimes, whatever. But as long as it's working most of the time, if you're finishing the build, obviously you want it working every single time. But it's when you change your gear and stuff, it does affect that. So I'm not too worried about it right now. When I finalize the build, it's going to be triggering every single time with some kind of setup there. And then I think that's it. So with our Glorious Vanity Jewel, we can use a Impossible Escape to allow us to allocate all or any passive or notable passive within the radius of Mind Over Matter, which this is normally Mind Over Matter, so it works here, but we're taking Divine Flesh, obviously. And so from this, we are getting damage over time, we're getting maximum life, and our increased cast damage along with Inflicting Withered for 2 seconds on hit. Also, I'm taking some movement speed, and then this is not actually a Divine Flesh or Glorious Vanity thing. This is just the normal node here. I'm getting 20% reduced effective shock on me, along with, oh god, it's this button, yeah, 60% reduced effective shock on me, and then I can get a Corrupted Jewel for the last reduced effective shock on me. There's a Corrupted Implicit that's 20 to 25% reduced effective shock, so that's where I'll get that. Elemental Ailments Immunity. I don't have bleeding or... Oh, actually I do now on Flask have immunity to bleeding and corrupted blood. Since I'm mage blood, that's always up. What's the other ones that matter? Obviously fire damage over time doesn't matter because it's turning into chaos damage over time. So we don't have to get immunity to that. Actually, we welcome it. And you can use the Searing Exarch altars that drop Burning Ground, that give chaos damage over time to you. If you have mage blood, you can take all the flask ones. Very good stuff. And then what are other elemental ailments? Oh, we're immune to freeze and chill with these boots on. I think that's it, more or less. So for my rings, it's obviously just life and stuff on them that really matters. The resistances probably don't matter too much with mage blood. I could get a mage blood flask for this and cover my resistances a lot better. I did have to have dexterity on here to run Blade Vortex because it's 155 dex to run a max level one. But I don't need it so much now because I got mage blood, which has dexterity on it. I could probably make this like minus cost to non-channeling skills, which would definitely help the mana gen on the build. And then you do need some kind of damage taken recouped as life, I'm pretty sure, along with this cluster up here that I didn't talk about. This is damage taken recouped as life. That's actually so much, I did not realize. And then also, it's good to take the life recoup effects instead occur over 3 seconds instead of 4, because that's just faster generation, which matters when we're damaging ourselves so much. And so you need a little bit on a ring. I'm pretty sure maybe I don't now with how I have my build set up, but I did at one point. And then, yeah, just life. And you also need enough intelligence to run a Twilight Regalia. It looks like, yeah, my... I do need this ring. Why is this? Oh, it's taking off my gloves, which also have attributes on them. Okay, and then with these gloves, this offering to the serpent, I did cut in the clip that I just recorded right now earlier. but this life leech effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. That last mod on it, I don't know, look at it, try and figure out where it is. But that's very important to this build. Maybe it can be changed, as I talked about earlier. But also in these gloves, I'm getting attributes, a little bit of energy shield, which is life, and then I have a corrupted one where I curse enemies with temporal chains on hit, which extends our poison duration, and then also gives us some kind of defense where enemies are slower. And we can apply 2 curses because we have a corrupted implicit on our Tainted Pact where you can apply an additional curse. Obviously very cheap because this is not a good amulet unless you completely build around it, and even then you're still going to rip. So pretty cheap. And then lastly, on our Cane of Kolomak, we're getting our +3 levels to socketed support gems, which gives us a lot on our build. As I've talked about, we are also getting 86% to chaos damage over time multiplier and 171% increased chaos damage, which is affecting our poison damage and our damage from our chaos hits, which is Forbidden Rite, and our Soul Run of the Spiral. So still a very good weapon, along with the good stuff we're getting out of it for our Cyclone, which was like the main reason that I picked this weapon. And then you kind of just have to go into poison build with this. I spent days trying to solve damage on this build and figuring out I had this thing set up, and then I didn't know what else to put anywhere else on the build for so long. And it's mostly because I misunderstand how poison worked, I think. But it still would have taken me a while to get to this point. But this is definitely the road that this build's going to go down. I think a Nimbus ring obviously is good because projectile spray build. And then Progenesis is the next couple steps to buy here. A perfect ring mirrored or something. And then this helmet's like really suboptimal. I'm pretty sure I could easily fracture something and then essence craft a better helmet within a couple divines, actually. But just getting life on it, maybe mana reservation or something, just literally do anything with this. I bought this like weeks ago. Yeah, I think that's all I have to share. I was getting too carried away. I literally farmed a Mage Blood. I should have made this video before, but I just couldn't stop playing the build. So I had to stop and like actually make a video. And then of course, when I finalize the build, I'll probably make another video. I'll probably stream this now. I don't like streaming when I'm playing this game right now because I really suck at it. Like compared to anyone else in PoE1, I don't really want people to watch me struggle, I guess. Not like dying in the game, just not knowing what to do to make a build. I mostly just like stare at the screen anyway, trying to like think of something so it's not entertaining. But yeah, I'll probably stream some gameplay now because I'm just farming and I basically know the path I have to go down. There's not much thinking left to do on the build. So, I mean, I haven't streamed on Twitch in a while, so if you don't want to follow, then I don't blame you. But go ahead and follow my Twitch if you want to see me stream, if I ever do. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.